Brutus and Unison, Life. It's the third album from, I think, one of the most unique heavy bands to have emerged kind of in the T&M era. I really liked their first album, Burst. I saw them live a couple times around that era, and they're really fascinating and very engaging live, and really quite intense as well. And their second album, Nest, won them some wider acclaim and really quite rave reviews across the board with it. Have you guys been on board with Brutus?
Yes, I really got into them on the second album. I haven't had a chance to see them live yet, but they are one of the best bands around. They are brilliant.
I feel like a bit of a buffoon because I completely missed out on Nest, because around that time I was completely burnt out on post-hardcore, post-rock, math rock, that sort of thing, post-hardcore, shoegaze. And so when this album started getting loads of acclaim, sorry, not this album, Nest, when Nest started getting loads of acclaim, I thought, I don't really have the time or the energy for that sort of thing, I'll just let it pass me by. Well, we'll get to it, but it's a silly, silly boy.
Yeah, well, I think they're now, after Nest, they're quite a beloved band now in the kind of like Arctangent worlds and stuff like that. I mean, I was watching a live video of them playing in Ghent, which is sort of, might be their hometown. They're from Belgium, so around there. And the venue they were playing in for their like hometown show looked really fucking big for what you would imagine the kind of thing to be. And there is this kind of, I agree, like again, the sort of the post-hardcore, post-metal, math rock world or something, I often get quite burned out on it if it's just like, you know, another thing. But Brutus is so immediately identifiable as this kind of like, you know, almost like spiky, punky translation of like, you know, Botch and Bosk and Russian circles and stuff like that, with a kind of post-hardcore, you know, immediacy to it. I think, truthfully, this might be one of those bands where I will always have a particular sort of fascination with the debut album as the first one I kind of heard like in this most primordial form. But I think maybe even more than on Nest this time, I am impressed with how they've developed that onto this one.
I'm not like the biggest in like on the whole Arctangent sort of scene, but Brutus have kind of carved a really unique niche in that they cover so much ground, because there's like shoegaze, post-rock, post-metal, post-hardcore all in there. Like dream pop, it's all kind of like channeling all these things in a way that genuinely sounds like no one like I don't think there's anyone else that I can really see quite sounds like Brutus at the moment. They really seem to have like found their sound, which they are making like themselves stand out with, and I'm just so in with it.
Well, this is my first time listening to a full Brutus album, and right from the off, I was thrilled that it sounded like a band, which is a criticism I have for a lot of those Arctangent groups, is that they sound like a musical exercise rather than the primal scream. So, yeah. You know, and the great bands like At the Drive-In, Refused, Fugazi, whoever you put in that...
At the Drive-In's a great comparison, actually.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, you listen to them, and it's super technical. You know, you're constantly paying attention to the different movers and stuff, but it still sounds like it's coming from a person. It doesn't sound like it's all been pro-tooled and messed about with. And what was so refreshing to me was it's been a little while since I've encountered a new band that has adopted that approach. And in the first two songs, immediately, this sounds like a band in a room, but they're the most talented musicians around.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favourite things about this band has actually always been the guitar leads, which have these really like weird, slippery, kind of melodic, up and down fretboard kind of parts, almost like Once More Round the Sun era Mastodon or something at times, but on these like rolling, clattering punk beats like you get on Brave or Liar. But then songs like that, you know, they join onto these like huge fucking reverb swamped, unbelievably graceful passages. And the thing that they did on the second album was really start making these songs build, being less spiky and more sweeping. And they have managed to do that while, like you're saying, kind of maintaining the kind of the root kind of engine of it, and the sense that you are listening to a real fucking band. And it's as much power as it is, you know, being pretty. Like, it's full on huge chords crashing down on you from the sky. I mean, I do love when Brave does the full on like magical TV sound effect chimes run at the end of that like big part and stuff. But like, I mean, that first song, when the huge, like, blaring doom chord comes in on Miles Away, which otherwise is kind of almost like an ethereal vocal track, it shits you up.
Yeah, like, that is, like, that song is so dreamy and beautiful for the first minutes, and then, like her vocals are stunning, and then when those chords start ringing in, and you kind of, that puts you sort of at, like, gives you a feeling of unease, And when that gives way to Brave, and Brave sort of bursts in with this like slippery, like almost Converge-esque kind of hardcore riffing, but mixed with the big post-metal like riffs as well. It just sounds so raw. That is what this album is there's nothing about this album that doesn't feel raw and real, and like I say, I know, like I say, you said like an actual band, but like the emotion, the sort of intent, the passion, and the feeling, every little part of this record is designed to maximize that.
Well, the vocal performance again is really, for me, one of the things that really sells it, because I mean, Bjork is the obvious comparison vocally, but it's that level of emotion where it really sounds like she's at a breaking point, but it's not that shirt-tuggy, theatre kid overacting thing that we've become so accustomed to with a lot of this emotional hardcore, that sort of thing. And some of which I like, but some of it you go, come on, this is take 23, you're not fooling anyone, you can't be crying again. Whereas in this case, because the band feels so live, it does feel like she's caught up in the moment, and her vocal, like the bits when she sounds like she's about to break,
every little vocal crack, yeah.
Exactly, the vocal cracks match up with what the band is doing, so it sounds like it's building to crescendos just up and down throughout the album, just constant little flickers of excitement.
Yeah, I mean, I really love Victoria. Feels almost like a kind of, for as much as this band have been like, again, a very expansive and punky kind of band, that it feels like they almost do like a really gorgeous alternative rock song, where like the melodies and the guitar on that are like, for the basement and turnover fans and stuff, like it's really lush and dreamy, and it has this kind of straightforward 4/4 kind of feel to it that just allows for a really good rock song that has this really earnest, powerful vocal performance at the centre of it. Because Stephanie is like one of the most distinct vocalists in our world right now. Like her intonation is so striking and unusual, with this kind of almost alien but emotive centre of it all. And she does, like on Brave, she puts in a little bit more of a kind of a snarl, which is great. But I think this record, it feels quite a lot heavier emotionally, a record for them, for whatever reason. I don't know about the context or whatever, but like stuff like What Have We Done on here, there's kind of space on this album for like really stirring, pained, heartbroken sounding moments. And when you do that along with, some maybe some of their best choruses so far, and stuff like Storm and stuff like that have really good hooks, it's definitely it's not going to be a kind of leave anyone sort of unmoved.
It's even like on a song like the end of Brave, where she is just chanting essentially, and again you feel so much from that. Like I don't know if it's because fellow sort of countrymen, but it reminds me of Oathbreaker in that way, of how emotionally laid bare and just sort of like intense it is. Obviously this is way more melodic, and it like, and so it's taking that kind of similar thing, but you never feel like this is not like someone laying out every emotion and everything, and when like I said, when you get those vocal cracks, it sounds like that's just what has happened in the moment, and it's just kind of been kept in because it sounds it's real at that point.
One thing that I enjoy so much about this album is one thing I enjoy so much about this album is that the melodic influences are so almost counterintuitive to the sort of thing you might immediately expect. It feels like a lot of post-hardcore bands now, when they have melodic guitar lines, it's just Dance Gavin Dance rip-offs. But a lot of the chord structures here, they sound like they could be lifted from something like Explosions in the Sky, but whereas that's used to make something splendid and grand and building to a gradual crescendo, this is just constant firepower throughout. Not constant firepower, but like constant energy throughout. Like the momentum never really drops, even in the more serene passages.
Yeah, I think it almost, in a way, this is almost like what I would want Dance Gavin Dance to sound like, just kind of to fit with my sort of aesthetic sort of sensibilities. And I do just love the pacier songs on them, like Dust and stuff, where you can feel the three of them just absolutely clattering along on their instruments. And, on Chain Life, there's a real growl in the guitars, like it's a crust song or something. And I think that's where there's something immediate about them, because for all the influence taken from bands like Russian Circles or Explosions in the Sky, like you mentioned, Brutus, their focus isn't on songs are these like patient 7-minute crescendos. Like Liar just immediately comes in with full-on rock chords, and it's quite something how they've taken those kind of sensibilities and gone, let's go direct to the throat with it. And I think in general, like, it's hard to have a unique sound in rock music. Like, it's hard to be instantly recognisable now. And Brutus kind of have been from record one, which is what I always kind of give them credit for. And, you know, Elliot, you voiced something on one of the shows that we've done, which I very much feel too, which is getting bored of bands who say they're influenced by Deftones, because normally it just means a more boring copy. This is a band where you feel some Deftones influence, but doing it the right way, because it's not just ripping them off and trying to be Chino Marino. It's taking things from them and post-metal bands and post-hardcore bands and putting it all in this kind of broth to make this thing that does sound genuinely quite new.
It is the melding of ideas and influences where, like, again, and they're taking so much of the stuff I like and putting it together in these songs that feel exciting and fresh. And like I said, yeah, like, there's variety across the record where, like, it's not just kind of like, there are longer songs, like you said, like there are songs that are kind of 6 minutes drawn out, but it's not. It doesn't feel like you're just waiting in that time for the crescendo tip, because they're still filling that time with so many ideas and being.
They make quite busy records, I think.
Yeah, no, totally. But it never feels just like padded out or disinteresting or overwhelming. Everything feels so specifically crafted to sort of make the most impact.
What I think they do so cleverly, which I think explains that phenomenon, is that rather than having here's the spiky moment and here's the serene moment, they have them both at the same time.
Yeah.
So you get that gorgeous crescendo, and yet it's over a D beat. So you get the best of both worlds throughout. So, you know, in the 45 minutes this record is, it's just constant excitement.
Yeah, Unison Life by Brutus